Very good morning, students. The previous class we have discussed about the respiration. What are the respiratory system or organs of some organisms we have discussed. Why respiratory rate is faster in aquatic animals than the terrestrial animals we have discussed, and finally activities we have discussed. Today we are going to see human respiratory system, how respiration occurs in human being. We are going to discuss detailing. This is an important diagram after the nutrition in a human being's diagram. This is an important diagram. Kindly you practice it and draw in classwork note also. Let's see how the respiration is occurs in the human being. The respiration is intake of oxygen and breakdown glucose and release of energy, that is respiration. And what is breathing? So breathing is a part of respiration, just exchange of gases like oxygen in and CO2 out. The air is taken into the body through nostrils. Nostrils. So what is nostrils? Nose. Via nose, the air is taken. Air is taken. So what is what is taken? Air is taken. So what type of air is oxygen? So the oxygen is taken into the nostrils. Through the nostrils we intake oxygen from the atmosphere. So where it is in the nasal passage here, the nostrils we have. From here we take oxygen. So after nostrils, it is passing to the nasal cavity and pharynx and larynx. What is pharynx and larynx? Is a part of respiratory system. So this larynx is, we generally call it as a voice box. The larynx is also called it as a voice box. So the air is traveled through the pharynx and larynx and reach to the throat. The throat only contains pharynx and larynx, and here the air is traveled. The throat also consists some mucus. Here the air passage consists mucus. What is the role of mucus? The mucus is gives wet condition, moisture condition should be there. So that is given by the mucus. So the air is taken through the nostrils and passing nasal cavity and throat. There is a pharynx and larynx. The larynx is called as a voice box. Voice box. After the larynx, trachea is there. What is trachea? The trachea is a long tube-like structure. It is also pass the air. The trachea is a tube-like structure. It is generally called windpipe. The trachea is also called as a windpipe. Through the trachea, air will pass. And the trachea is made of cartilage. Cartilage. So what is cartilage? Cartilage is a type of connective tissue. The last year you have studied connective tissues like blood is a connective tissue, cartilage is a connective tissue, tendon is a connective tissue, areola is a connective tissue. Like that, many connective tissues we have discussed. So cartilage is there in the trachea. Cartilage is a type of connective tissue. When it is in the trachea, it is prevent from the collapse of air. When there is a cartilage in the trachea, is a connective tissue, it prevents from the collapse of air. For example, when we bend our head, what will happen? The nasal passage may bend, no? Okay, that time what will happen? The gaseous exchange, there will be a disturbance, no? While oxygen in and CO2 out, there will be a disturbance. Okay, but it will not happen because the trachea, this trachea is made up of connective tissue cartilage. The cartilage only prevent from the collapse of air. Prevent collapse of air. Very important one. What is trachea? What is trachea? What is it made of? Then what is the function? What is its role? So the trachea is made up of the the connective tissue cartilage. This is prevent from the collapse of air. So this is a trachea. Fully cartilage is present. Is a connective tissue. The trachea is also called as a windpipe. Windpipe. Then the trachea will stop in a particular point, and the trachea is divided into two. The trachea is divided into the right and the left part. This is called as a bronchi. Bronchi means the trachea will divide into two. So the two part is called as a bronchi. And here the lungs present. Lungs are present. The lungs are present. Inside the lungs, the bronchi are divided into many branches. The bronchi are divided into many branches. This is one branch, this is one branch. These are the branches of bronchi. So these branches of bronchi call it as bronchioles. Bronchioles. So this one, bronchioles. Here, bronchi, the trachea is divided into two, that is bronchi. Again, the bronchi are branched into many, call it as a bronchioles. End of the bronchioles, this is the end of the bronchiole, this is one end, this is one end. These are the ends of the bronchioles. So, end of the bronchiole, there is a balloon-like structure. There is a balloon-like structure where in the terminal of the bronchioles or end of the bronchiole there is a balloon-like structure. The balloon-like structure is called as alveoli. Again, end of the bronchioles there is a balloon-like structure. The balloon-like structure is called as alveoli. So, the air will enter through the nostrils and pass the nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, lungs, and finally reach to the alveoli. So, the structure of alveoli is a balloon-like structure. So, inside the alveoli only gaseous exchange will occur, that is oxygen in and CO2 out. Oxygen in and CO2 out. So, the role of alveoli involved in gaseous exchange. In alveoli, there are many blood vessels are there. Like in small intestine we studied, no? In small intestine there is a finger-like projections called villi. The villi contains many blood vessels. The blood only absorbs the digested food. We discussed now. The same, then the alveoli, the gaseous exchange will occur. The alveoli contains lot of blood vessels. The blood vessels contain blood. The blood absorb the oxygen. The blood only absorb the oxygen and transport to each and every cell of our body and fulfill the oxygen needed. Again, the alveoli is a balloon-like structure. The alveoli, in the alveoli only gases exchange occur because the alveoli contain many blood vessels. The blood vessel contain blood. The blood only absorb the oxygen and transport to all the parts of the body, each and every cell of the body. Okay, that is alveoli. And diaphragm. So in the bottom of the respiratory system, there is a sheet or muscles. Sheet or muscles will have the bottom of the respiratory system or end of the thoracic cavity. What is thoracic cavity? Up to from here to here is a thoracic cavity. So end of the thoracic cavity there is a sheet like structure made up of muscle. Is a muscle. Okay, that is called it as a diaphragm. Okay, so this diaphragm only responsible for the inhalation and exhalation. When we intake of air, what will happen? The air will enter into the alveoli and the chest becomes large in size because the air is filled in the alveoli. So the chest is expanded. Okay, and what will happen? Our chest becomes up because of the filled with the oxygen. When we exhale, when we release CO2, what will happen? There is no sufficient amount of air inside the alveoli. What will happen? Suddenly our chest becomes normal position. So when we inhale oxygen, the diaphragm push up our chest. When there is no oxygen or no gases, what will happen? Becomes normal position. Okay, so diaphragm is a muscle. So it is present end of the thoracic cavity, and also it is separate the respiratory system and the digestive system. So below the diaphragm, digestive system placed. So it is responsible to separate the digestive system and the respiratory system, and also responsible for the inhalation and exhalation. Suppose if the diaphragm damaged naturally or due to accident, what will happen? Without diaphragm, there is no process inhale and exhale, because this only push up our the chest, because the air is filled and push up. So if there is no diaphragm, what will happen? So we cannot inhale, we cannot exhale. Respiratory cannot occur properly. So it leads to death. So there is no diaphragm, leads to death because of lack of inhalation, exhalation. Okay, inhalation and exhalation will not take place. And the other one is during the inhalation and exhalation. For inhalation, there is some time. After exhalation, again we take oxygen inside. No, so there is some time. So in the time, how our body manage? In the time when there is no inhalation, at the time what our body do? How it manage without oxygen? Our body can manage because there is a residual volume of air. residual volume of air. எப்போ நம்ம inhale பண்றோம் exhale பண்றோமோ அப்ப exhaleக்கு there is a some time for again inhale. அப்ப அந்த inhaleக்கு அப்புறம் exhaleக்கு கொஞ்சம் டைம் எடுக்கும். exhaleக்கு அப்புறம் inhaleக்கு கொஞ்சம் டைம் எடுக்கும். அந்த டைம்ல how our body manage oxygen எல்லாம் எப்படி மேனேஜ் பண்ணது அப்படின்னா we exhale நம்ம CO2 ரிலீஸ் பண்ணுவோம். But some amount of oxygen present inside the alveoli. நம்ம CO2 ரிலீஸ் பண்ணுவோம். But some amount of oxygen எங்க இருக்கும்? Alveoli இருக்கும். So with the help of the residual volume of air, our body can manage. Okay, so that is the residual volume. Residual volume அப்படின்னா exhalation inhalation cause there is some gap. So on the gap how our body managed without oxygen. So with the help of residual volume of air managed. Okay, so like this respiration occurs. Again, this is a human respiratory system. The air is taken through the nostrils. The nostril contains some hairs. Inside you see there are some hairs. So what is the role of the hair? The hairs are prevent some dust particles, prevent some germs which do not enter in our nasal passage. So there is a hairs in our nostrils, prevent the dust and some unwanted particles. And also there is a mucus. Mucus we studied already. So some colloidal or moist content. So that is also help for the passage of air. So it is travel nasal cavity and throat. It contains the pharynx and the larynx. The larynx is called voice box. So when we speak, no, the voice produced, no, because of the larynx. Then after the larynx, the long tube, extended tube is there, that is called trachea. It is also called windpipe. The trachea is made up of special type of connective tissue, that is cartilage. So when the cartilage is there on the trachea, do not prevent from the collapse of air. If the cartilage is not present in the trachea, now what will happen? The air circulation not proper. So the cartilage prevent from the collapse of air. Then the trachea will divide into two. That is called as a bronchi. So this is a bronchi. The bronchi again divided into many branches. These are the branches of bronchi. So that branches are called as a bronchioles. This is a bronchi. This is a bronchioles. Each and every bronchioles or end of the bronchiole there is a balloon-like structure. Or terminal of the bronchioles having the balloon-like structure. The balloon-like structure is called as alveoli. So like this, many alveoli are there. So each and every alveoli there is a more number of blood vessels. In alveoli, gaseous exchange occurs, oxygen in, CO2 out, according to the diffusion. So oxygen and carbon dioxide exchanges occurs in the alveoli because alveoli contain more blood vessels. Blood vessel consists blood. The blood only absorb oxygen and transport each and every cell of our body. And on the bottom of the respiratory system system, there is a sheet or muscle that is called as a diaphragm. The diaphragm only help for inhalation and exhalation. So when we inhale oxygen, the oxygens are filled up inside the lungs and our chest becomes up. Okay, because the diaphragm will push up the chest. And when we exhale, there is no much air inside the alveoli. So what will happen? Our chest become normal position and also diaphragm shrink. If diaphragm is damaged due to accident or some other ways, there is no inhalation and exhalation. So finally it leads to death. So it's important, and also diaphragm separate the digestive system and respiratory system. Residual volume of air. So after inhalation, there is a gap again for inhalation. So how the body cells are managed? Some amount of air is stored inside the alveoli. So that is called as a residual volume of air. Residual volume of air. Okay, and oxygen is absorbed by the cells, and also the cells produce more amount of carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide are released by the tissues only. The blood is transport oxygen. After utilizing oxygen in the respiration process, glucose is break down and gets energy. Then the oxygen utilized and produced carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide much dissolved in the water, that means in the blood, than the oxygen. Very important one. The carbon dioxide is very much dissolved in the blood than the oxygen. So when the tissues are released CO2, the CO2 very much dissolved in the blood, and while reaching to the alveoli or alveolar sac, again it comes into a gaseous state. Again, when the tissues are released much CO2, then it is dissolved in the water, that means in the blood. While reaching to the alveolar sac, again it becomes gaseous state. That's a normal state. Then gaseous exchange occurs. Okay, so like this, respiration occurs in our body. Okay, kindly make note of residual volume. What is the usage of cartilages? What is alveoli? What is diaphragm? Kindly take notes. Next one. Respiratory pigments. Respiratory pigments. Respiratory pigments. What is respiratory pigment? Pigments we know already. We studied already. The chlorophyll is a green color pigment. So some pigments are involved in the respiration. So example is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a respiratory pigment. So what is the role of hemoglobin? We cannot cannot give assurity. Always through the diffusion process, oxygen will reach to all the parts of the body. Again, kindly observe. According to the diffusion only, the molecules are moved from the region of higher concentration to the lower concentration. We studied already. But sometimes, some areas, the diffusion process will not occur sufficient. That time, there is a shortage of oxygen. So, if there is a shortage of oxygen, respiration process will not occur properly. So, that time, the respiratory pigments involved. The respiratory pigment is hemoglobin. The hemoglobin location, where it is located in red blood corpuscles, shortly called RBC. In RBC, red blood corpuscles, the hemoglobin pigment is present. The hemoglobin present is always affinity with oxygen molecule. The hemoglobin always affinity with the oxygen molecule, always bind or attach with the oxygen molecule. So, it is transported to each and every cell of the body when there is a shortage of the diffusion process. That time, the hemoglobin respiratory pigments affinity with or attachment with the oxygen molecule and transport to each and every cell of the body. This is located in RBC, red blood corpuscle. We studied already. Generally, there is a blood cell. The first one is RBC. The RBC only absorb the nutrients and also absorb the oxygens. We studied now. How it is absorb oxygen? There is a respiratory pigment, hemoglobin. The hemoglobin always affinity with the oxygen. So, the RBC strongly bind with the oxygen and it is transported. Another one is blood platelets. RBC, WBC, blood platelets. So, RBC absorb transported digested or digested food and also transported oxygen. And WBC gives immunity power. And blood platelets prevent from the blood clot. Like that we studied. So, respiratory pigment is hemoglobin. It is always affinity with the oxygen. So, it is tightly bound with the oxygen and transport the oxygen. Where it is located? In RBC. RBC, red blood corpuscle, the hemoglobin present. Hemoglobin is present. Then, we discussed already, comparison oxygen, carbon dioxide is much dissolved in the water. The water means here blood. So, easily it is transport the oxygen and the carbon dioxide. So, the carbon dioxide is much dissolved in the water than the oxygen. So, that easily it is transported. So, the tissues release carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxides are dissolved in water. Here blood, water means here blood because fluid no dissolved in the water. So when it is reached to the alveoli again this comes into gaseous as a normal state. And gaseous exchange occurs in the alveoli. Gaseous exchange is occurs in the alveoli. So, like this, respiration occurs in the humans. This is very important one. Kindly make note of it. And there is a more to know. I told you sometimes question come from more to know. Oh, let's discuss the more to know. The page number 103, more to know. Page number 103, more to know. More to know. So, what is the concept of this more to know? The tobacco is injurious to health, is a danger to health in the form of BD, cigarette, gutka, or any other ways. The tobacco is very serious. It causes lot of diseases also, like heart attack, pulmonary disease, and strokes and cancer. So those who are smoking, their respiratory rate will be reduced because it affects the lungs. It affects the lungs. It affects the alveoli. So the alveoli numbers will reduce. When the alveoli numbers reduced, what will happen? The residual volume of oxygen will reduce. So there is a deficit of oxygen. Okay, so the tobacco is dangerous in any form. So many forms are there. In any forms, that is danger. Cause cancer, stroke, pulmonary infections or respiratory problem. So many respiratory problem it is cause. Okay, so kindly you go through these, page number 103, more to know. And page number 104, more to know. More to know, 104. Okay. So what is given there? The respiratory tract. Respiratory tract having cilia. Cilia. We already studied cilia. Where we studied in paramecium, there is a structure cilia. The cilia is responsible for the movement of the paramecium, like that we studied. Okay, so the cilia is there in our respiratory tract. Respiratory tract. So we studied already last year ciliated epithelial tissue. Ciliated epithelial tissue. These are long, like this tissues. This is a nucleus. This is a cilia. This is a cilia. So it is in the respiratory tract. It is made up of ciliated epithelial tissue, have a cilia like this. So this cilia only prevent the or do not allow the germs when we inhale. Do not allow germs and do not allow the dust particles and do not allow any other chemical substances which is in air. So that is all protected or prevented by the cilia. So that is there in the type of epithelial tissue. So that is ciliated epithelial tissue. So when we inhale with oxygen, dust or chemical substances or any other microorganism may enter. So the ciliated epithelial tissues are protect from the unwanted substances. Those who are smoking, the ciliated epithelial tissue is there, no? The cilia destroys. The cilia are destroyed. So what will happen? All the germs may enter, dust particles enter, or any other chemical substances may enter into the respiratory tract and reach to the lungs and affect the lungs, cause many diseases. So that say no to drugs and any other tobacco, even cigarette. Okay, again there is a cilia present in the respiratory tract. The cilia on the epithelial tissue, that is called as a ciliated epithelial tissue. They are responsible to protect the germs, dust particles and chemical substances. Those who are smoking, the cilia are destroyed. So dust particles, unwanted things are enter into the respiratory tract and reach to the lungs and cause lung cancer or any other respiratory problem. So should not smoke. So this is given in the more to know page number 104. And page number 105. 105, there is another one information. Page number 105. More to know. So we studied already the alveoli, the more number of alveoli is there. The alveoli, if you spread the alveoli, it occupies 80 meters squared. If you spread the alveoli, which is present in our lungs, if you spread the alveoli, it covers 80 meters square. Imagine how much size it is. So too much of. So if the tennis court, if you spread it, it fully occupies. And the gaseous exchange occurs, diffusion process we studied. If the diffusion process we cannot give assurity, it takes place always properly. Sometimes the diffusion will not occur in such areas. That time what will happen? Respiratory pigments will carry the oxygen to all the cells, each and every cells. So we should not always believe the diffusion process occurs properly. Sometimes there is a shortage. That time respiratory pigments will carry the oxygen and transport to each and every cell of our body. If the diffusion process only should occur and transport the oxygen and carbon dioxide, if we think no, it takes minimum 3 years. It takes minimum 3 years to carry the oxygen from lungs to toes. Takes minimum 3 years. Again, if we think only diffusion should occur in our body, it's difficult because sometimes some regions the diffusion process may not be occur. That time respiratory pigments involved in the process transport the oxygen. If you think only the diffusion should transport the oxygen, if you think no, that is difficult because from lungs to toes, to reach oxygen from lungs to toes, it takes nearly 3 years. Imagine how much slow it is happening. And luckily we have a respiratory pigment, that is hemoglobin, that help to transport the oxygen to each and every cell of our body. And next process, after this respiration is over, next life process is transportation. Transportation. What is transportation? Transportation means the digested food is transport one to another one place. The digested food is transport one to another one place. So how it is occurs? It is occurs with the help of the blood, because the blood is a type of connective tissue. Blood is a type of connective tissue. The blood only transport the digestive food one to another place. That is called as a transportation. So the blood is involved. And plasma. What is plasma? It is a part of the blood. The fluid part of the blood is called as a plasma. So there only all the cells are suspended or embedded. That may be WBC, RBC, blood platelets are suspended or embedded on the plasma. So blood is a transportive tissue or fluid tissue, fluid transportive tissue or connective tissue. And what is plasma? Is a part of the blood. Is a part of the blood is called as a plasma. The plasma only all the blood cells are embedded. Okay. The function of the blood. Blood functions. Transport nutrients, transport gases, that is oxygen and carbon dioxide, and transport hormones, and transport waste materials. Transport waste materials. Here waste materials means urea, uric acid, like that, nitrogenous waste material. So these are the functions of blood. Again, now we have started transportation. What is transportation? To transport the digested food from one to another one place. So how it is happening? With the help of blood is happening. When the blood flows, it transports nutrients, gases like oxygen, carbon dioxide, hormones, and other waste materials are transported one to another place. And plasma. What is plasma? It is a part of the blood. It is a part of the blood. So there only all the blood cells are suspended. Okay, so just this is just an introduction about the transportation. So today's session is over, class is over. So kindly watch the videos till end, and next suddenly you go for the textbook reading, and kindly complete classwork and worksheet without fail. So it is a pandemic situation, everything you know. So stay home, stay safe. Thank you.